maybe I can start off by asking you, in this very materialistic, secular society that we live in, what would you say is the purpose of life?
In this, I wouldn't say it's a completely materialistic world that we live in. Maybe it's largely materialistic, but there are other aspects to it. Thank you so much. So, I'll pass this to you, so you don't have to. No, it's working. So, I think it's not completely materialistic, but there are also some aspects of life like culture, charity. It is there to some extent. My suggestion would be to give more stress to that, the second part which we discussed, and not so much attention to the other part, which is, material is also required. If you go to the ancient system of thought, you have dharma, artha, material, kama, desire, and moksha. So they're all important. However, the idea should be dharma, artha, kama, moksha, not only for yourself but also for others. So somewhere along the line, I think we have forgotten this. So we should remember this. Actually, practically speaking, if everybody is happy, you're also happy, really. So many revolutions would have been avoided if everybody was happy. It's because certain part of society was unhappy. There is where the revolutions come from, which is, I won't say good or bad, but necessary, essential. So the revolution now should be in the mind. Those revolutions' days are gone. We are civilized, we have moved forward. So the revolution should be in each one of our minds. That while we have to deal with material things, we don't forget the spiritual context. That revolution should start in our minds individually, so that when 10 individuals come together, then it becomes, a practice. I think that's what we should look at.
But the truth is that life has become very fast in London. I've lived here most of my life. Technology, which was supposed to give us more leisure, has actually created more of a burden, because America is a few hours behind us in time, India is a few hours ahead, so New Zealand is even further away. People are corresponding with people around the world. Secondly, even the correspondents who send an email to someone, they expect an answer almost immediately. Where, domestic chores and work, where is the time to attend to spiritual needs? How do you fold that into life?
As far as the emails are concerned, I am one of the sufferers, so I know how it is. I mean, it's also good because there is no other way people can contact you. I wouldn't blame technology, because technology can also, now we are talking here and so many people will come to know because of technology. I mean, there are good sides to technology.
But the speed of life.
That's the speed of life. So, somewhere along the line, in our own lives, we should kind of say, okay, we need to reduce our speed and quieten down at least for half an hour every day to start with. I think it's very important. Just as we have food for the body, we need food for the soul. And for that, we need to see how important it is. If you really realize how important it is, I think in the midst of all this, we'll somehow make time for it. I think that, even if it is only for reflection, it is okay, even if you're not doing it. That time should not be compromised. Make sure that, I ask people, sometimes people come to me and say, I want to meditate. I said, okay, what kind of meditation? Whatever. Okay. So I said, when can you do it? Can you do 10 minutes or 15 minutes every morning? I said, morning I can't do it. Why? Because I have to take the dog out for a walk. Okay? Now, you know how you take the dog out for a walk. The dog is in front and you're following it. So, or they say, oh, I have to play this, or I have to go for my asana. So, which means I ask them, do you consider this a priority? If you consider this a priority, then you will make time. So, in the midst of this, look at me. I think I also run around quite a bit. I also go with the fast pace of things. I also use email. Snail mail has been forgotten long ago. But I personally think that some part of my mind is quiet. It's from this quietness that you act. So it's possible to act from quietness. I'm telling you as a practical example. I'm 69 now. My mind is not. The body is 69. So how did this happen? Because I figured out, with the blessings and help of my master, that there is something in us, inside us, which is a fountainhead of energy and goodness. It's in all of us. If it is in me, it has to be in everybody. So somewhere along the line, we should give time and not get too caught up with what we do. Then perhaps it's possible to do both. The time is gone when somebody spiritual goes into a monastery and leads his life. Now we need people who are here and in action. The whole philosophy of the Gita is meditation in action. Just imagine somebody trying to teach meditation in the midst of the battlefield. What you said is the battlefield.
Correct.
So this is something that we have.
But to reach that point where a part of the mind is quiet, I mean, how much effort and how possible is it for people leading very busy lives?
Busy depends on us. We can make it less busy. And I think if we put in a little bit of effort, that will be amply rewarded by this.
I think I'll just wait for these questions to come. Okay, the first question is, children are tomorrow's future.
I think you should use this.
Children are tomorrow's future. How can we help children to develop good qualities and spiritual values at home on a daily basis, especially when they feel practicing yoga, etc. is boring? So, beg for blessings.
Sorry, I'm laughing because I'm thinking of what my children would have also said, not because of the question. So, yeah, how can we help children to develop good qualities when they think it's also boring? See, I think more than trying to preach to the children, one should lead a life properly. Children are very sensitive. If you keep preaching something to them and you're not doing anything, you naturally expect that they feel bored about what is this, and they might. Children are the ones who easily detect hypocrisy. Also, this guy is saying always going to the temples and all, and he's saying, oh, this driver is asking for money, I don't give the money. You see, so how you live and demonstrate as an example is much more important than trying to make them do things. So that's one part of the question. The other is, try to make it more interesting. In a classroom, there are so many students sitting and listening to a teacher, not like this, I mean in an actual classroom, in school. And if the teacher is really interesting, if the teacher knows how to put across something in an interesting manner, I think the same thing would be studied by the students in a better way. I could do nothing with maths because my maths teachers were terrible. But later on I found out that maths, there are people who love mathematics. Probably they were made that way, and probably they had teachers who made maths very interesting for them. So if they think yoga is boring, they should find ways and means to make yoga more interesting. Make it part of the sport activity. Do something. I can't give you exact guidance on this because each child is different. So you need to look at the child and gauge how they react before you can change them. Thank you.
Maharishi Raman was asked about suffering in the world, and Maharishi said, if you remain free from pain, there will be no pain anywhere. But shouldn't you help people if they're suffering? As a good leader, should you help them? How do you know how God wants you to help people? Should you give money to beggars, for example? Ram Ram.
Well, I have no direct email contact with God, so I can't tell you how God wants me to help. But I think a mind that is spiritual and a mind that is compassionate spontaneously helps others. Let's keep Ramana Maharshi out of this because here we're talking about a being, a sage who has reached the highest. I'm talking from that angle. But here we're talking about day-to-day life and daily what we do here. So at the moment you should keep that away. What I would like to say is that if you wait for God to tell us one morning, help this guy, all our lives we will not do a thing. We will wait for that revelation. So I think many great teachers, many great saints have spoken and they have all said that it's a wonderful thing to help. And anyway, helping is not cultivated, it comes from within. And if somebody doesn't have it, then one begins to practice and feels the joy of it, then one begins to act accordingly. So we can't wait for inspiration to do it. We need to start somewhere. It's not giving money to the beggar, that's not service. I think a person who begs, unless he's a complete fraud, it's generally difficult for somebody to put out their hands and ask for something. So even if you don't want to give, don't get angry and shout at that person. Say, okay. And the solution is not to distribute money, it is to make people stand on their own feet. So if you can do something like that, that would be a great thing.
3M, you said that giving to others is important, but I find there are many obstacles when we truly try to give. Is it because of expectations out of the giving?
Yeah. I don't know who wrote this question, but I would like to know what these obstacles to giving are, at least one example. What are these obstacles to giving? Is it that we don't have enough to give? Or is it that somebody is preventing us from giving? Or is it that we are reluctant to give ourselves? So I would like a little more definition on what are the obstacles in giving, in trying to give. Having said that, the second part of your question is really relevant. If we give without expectations, if you give with expectations, then it's like a business. I give and I'm expecting something in return. Now, when a yogi when a person has touched something by which he feels fulfilled in his own heart and doesn't need anything from anybody else, then he can only give, he doesn't want anything from you. You see? So in the same way, many religions have this, give 1% of your income to others to help. It's a wonderful thing to do. In fact, even from the practical point of view, very many great industrialists have discovered, in a selfish way maybe, that to give is to receive. The great steel magnate, what is his name? In the United States. Dale Carnegie, not Dale Carnegie. Carnegie discovered very early in his life, and when he gave, he received. And I think it applies to all. It is true. But you don't have to give expecting to receive, because if you give expecting to receive, then if you don't get sometimes, then you'll be completely unhappy about it. So giving should be a process of joy, not a painful thing. If you feel pain after giving, then don't give. It's better not. Really, sir. What's the point? I give some money, then I go home and I should have given. That's not the way to give. Give with what they say, khule haath se, with khula mind. I don't know, you'll feel the joy of it. There was a little girl when we were coming with a bucket in her hand on the street, all dressed up, very small. Halloween. She came shaking her this thing, and she said, give something. And so she gave her, she said, I don't have a coin. She said, you don't need a coin, you can give me a paper.
Be a good businesswoman. How does one perform the best in everyday life when everything seems unreal or unimportant?
Does really everything seem unreal or unimportant? It's a question we have to ask ourselves. When we are hungry, is that unreal? Or do we look for food? I think when other person is hungry, that may seem unreal to us. But when I am hungry, it's very, very real to me. So, this mixing up of philosophy and practical life, one has to be very careful what we do. I also understand that in the ultimate analysis, everything is unreal. Lead me from the unreal to the real. Tamasoma, Jyotirka, Asatoma, Sadgamaya. Lead me true. But while we are still in this unreal world, if I am unreal and everybody is unreal, then that is real. You get what I am trying to say? Unless I have touched that and see the whole thing, but I don't see it, so we are still in this unreal world. And we are in this unreal world, think that unreal is also not only for me, but also for others. So when I am hungry and I feel the pain, I can't say this is unreal. I have to eat. Same with the other person. So we should keep this in mind. Abstraction and philosophical thinking is good, but at the same time we have to be practical about it. The Arabs have a saying, trust in God but tie your camel. So you need to be practical on this matter. While it's true in the ultimate analysis everything is unreal, the Brahman is real, Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya and so on, but that is not something which we can actually practice, because when a speeding train comes, you can't stand on the track, it's not unreal. Well, if it is unreal, if you're really established and experienced it, you won't move out. It doesn't matter whether the body remains or not. But what do we normally do? We jump out. So that means we're not reached there. As long as we're not reached there, please keep in mind that everybody has not touched that. So do what can be done as much as you can.
Please could you tell me what Kriya Yoga is?
Oh, now, this question. It's actually not to do much with our talk today. It would have been better tomorrow. Even if you had not asked, I would have talked about it. So, since you asked the question, can I a little bit about it? Well, the meaning of the word Kriya means a practical technique, a practice. So there is not one Kriya, there are many Kriyas. There are many techniques, there are many practices which have come down to us in this yogic system, many practices. When I say Kriya, I am talking about one such technique or one such practice that has come down to me through a great being called Sri Guru Babaji, through Maheshwarnath Babaji to me. This is what I mean by Kriya. And the Kriya which I talk about is not very different. In fact, it's almost the same as the Kriya Yoga talked about by Yogananda Paramahamsa in autobiography. They're not different, they're the same. So some people come and say, oh, we have already been initiated into Kriya Yoga by the Self-Realization Fellowship at Sarab, which in India is called Yogoda Satsang. So can you initiate? I said, but just do what you've been taught. I don't want to change it for you. Understand? So, okay. So this is Kriya. Now, it's a technique, it's a way of moving. It's suitable for people who even in the spiritual practice would like to go step by step, looking at milestones. How have you gone? How much have you gone? There are practical people and yogic people, people who like to practice. For such people, abstract Vedantic may not be interested in Kriya. However, it might help you. That's a different story. But from my understanding, it has helped me a lot. So I guess it's useful for others, if those who are interested. But I want you to remember this. My teacher, Maheshwaranath Babaji, told me once that don't think that only those people who practice Kriya Yoga are going to move forward spiritually. He asked me two questions. One, the great devotee called Mirabai, what Kriya did she practice? Nothing. I'm not trying to discourage you from Kriya, I practice Kriya. I'm just telling you what I know. And on the other side, a great Jnani, like Ramana Maharshi, what Kriya did he practice? Nothing. So it's not as if Kriya is a compulsory thing to do to move forward spiritually. It's not like that. Or maybe you're doing some other Kriya. It's okay. But, however, since I have practiced it and it is my tradition, I have found it good. Simply because it helps you to gather your energies. It helps you to keep the mind free of distraction. And it helps you to go in deep into the core of yourself. This it does. Don't ask me how to practice it now, but this is not possible to say now. But we'll discuss that tomorrow if you're going to come there, because this is not the subject to take up here. But please understand that if you are not practicing Kriya, don't be worried. If you are still spiritually inclined, don't worry. You get Kriya, okay. If you don't get it, it's okay. But keep your attention on the goal. That's what we need to do.
How do we deal with the evolution of modern thought in today's world in the context of ancient scriptures?
I would say that the evolution of modern thought, if one can allow it to evolve a little more, it will probably take a big curve and go back to ancient wisdom. Because a great many things, what we call modern thought today, have been discussed. When we say ancient wisdom, people sometimes think only about the religious part of it. There have been scientific discussions, there have been even things like Vimana Adhikara, there have been things like Vaisheshika philosophy, there have been the atheists called the Charvakas who have written a big system of thought. So it's not as if it's only religious. There are many more things. So if you look at it, especially the ancient Indian philosophy and the ancient Greek philosophy and the ancient Egyptian philosophy, you will see that many of what we think is modern thought is somehow linked and has its seeds out there. So please don't think of these as separate entities. They're interlinked. So if we realize this, then there's no harm in studying. It's in fact interesting and important to study modern thought. But please don't think that modern thought is the only thought process that is on this earth. There have been ancients have thought about it. Socrates said, "Know thyself," for which he was made to drink poison. So Please remember this.
It says, are there others? I think it means, is there the other? What am I? Is there a difference between you and me?
Are there others? Well, aren't there others here? Or am I sitting everywhere? So, I think what the question means is, what am I? If I understand what I am, then I perhaps feel that everybody is the same. But till I reach there, definitely there is a difference. There are others also. If I say, there are no others, I will do what I want, the world will be a big mess. So there are others. This, what am I, is something to do with your essential being. When that is understood, then you see that that I is reflected everywhere. It's not as if before you touch that you can say, oh, it's like this. You can't. You have to deal with practicalities of life. Even in a house, a husband is there and the wife is there. If the husband says, I am the only one that is there, who cares about me? This is not philosophy. This is ego. So one has to be careful in bringing the highest philosophy down to the ordinary level. There are levels, of course, but in the ultimate analysis, it's the same. Not before that. Are there many more questions?
Yes. We keep saying forgive and forget. At least we try to, but then it keeps coming back, sometimes in dreams or in our thoughts. Can we actually forgive and forget?
Well, the question is, do we actually forgive and forget? I think, forgiveness is a very big word. When you say forgive, I'm some big person who can forgive you, you're something small. And forget. Forget doesn't mean that you lose your memory. You have an accident and you lost your memory, that's not forget. Forget means, what in philosophy, in religious practice, it means, can we live without carrying forward the burden of yesterday? That's the meaning of forget. Can I, when I go to sleep, understand that this is a short death? Actually it is. Why do we get up in the morning and brush our teeth? I hope everybody does, some don't. And brush our teeth is because it's almost like a dead body, it begins to smell. If you continue for long, many days, maybe you will be just like a dead body. So, sleep, why does sleep rejuvenate? Because you forget everything. You don't even know if you exist. The moment I know I exist, then I have my own problems. Right? Oh, he didn't give me enough respect. I went into a gathering and nobody noticed me. Oh, terrible. I usually say, that's nice, you could have had a cup of tea and gone home. But no, it's a prestige. But when you sleep, you don't know who you are, you don't know where you are, nothing matters, which is why we are rejuvenated when we get up. So, if you can forget and forgive and not carry yesterday's wounds for tomorrow, there's a possibility that you can reach the state consciously which you reach unconsciously in sleep. And probably it's possible. I think it's possible. I'll tell you an example. Sorry, I know there are people, but I can't help saying this. Suppose one of you have some years ago given me a hardship. Suppose you have not, thank you. And I want to ask this question. How long does the slap the actual slap, how long does it last? 10 minutes? It's a very hard slap. If your tooth has fallen off, maybe a few days. But beyond that, the physical act of the slap is not there. It's finished. Would I let it go? No. I carry it in my mind like a tape playing over and over again. Oh, slap me, slap me, slap me. 20 years later, I want to slap him back. Slap me, slap me. It becomes a festering wound. We are asking, is it possible to discover? I think it is. We go to sleep, throw everything out, and say, it's over. It's not there anymore except in my brain going on and on like a tape. Can I be free of it? I think if you have the intention to do that, you can free yourself from it. Instead of making life hell when the actual act has gone and we are still thinking about it. I would say that is called forgetting. To let go. Upanishads, let go and rejoice. Tena jaktena vanjita. Let go and rejoice. Because you're so free and happy when you let go. Aren't we? So I think an attempt has to be made. And forgiveness, I don't like to use the word much because I have nobody to forgive. Who am I to forgive somebody? Everybody, I think, if they forgive me, I'm happy. Nobody to forgive. I think it's better to divide it into for and give and give. And forget the for. Thank you.
There is a leader in every one of us, but not everyone has Krishna as their guiding force. So the role of today's society, what is it to create role models that inspire the leaders of tomorrow, and what behavior should we encourage?
I think that there is a leader in everyone. But for that leader to become manifest, one has to first become somebody who follows. Suddenly one can't become a leader. You see, when you have an industry and you want your son to take over, if you suddenly make him the chairman or the managing director, it will be a miserable thing to do. He doesn't know how the lower rung operates. So I think it's good to put him in the storeroom first and work for some time before he learns the intricacies of how to handle this by personal experience, through personal experience. In the same way, I know that in everyone there is a leader. Most people, I think. But that leadership has to be nurtured. And that nurturing has many parts to it. Even a leader needs a guide before he can move forward and become a leader in turn. And if you ask me what are the characteristics and behavior of leaders, I would say first, to understand that I may not be knowing everything. A leader is one, I think, who understands that he himself is not omniscient and omnipotent, but that there are others who know, and if he can gather them together and make them do the work, that would be a great leader. I don't have everything. I might know how to guide people to think, but there are thinkers who have so many other factors which I may not have. So a leader should be, I think, one who can get the best essence of thinkers together and make them to do the work, rather than try to find solutions himself all the time or herself all the time. If this happens, like a good manager need not be an expert in every little thing that happens, but should be an expert in how to deal with experts. You know, once upon a time, not very long ago, Mr. Henry Ford, who was one of the pioneers of the automobile manufacturing, was hauled into court for something. And the judge wanted to make a little bit fun of him. So he asked him, Mr. Ford, how much do you know about an automobile engine? He said, actually I don't know much about an automobile engine. I'm not an engineer by profession. However, I know something called human engineering. I said, with the press of a button I can have 5 or 6 automobile engineers lined up in front of me and they'll do the stuff. I don't have to know automobile engineering. I know human engineering. So for a leader, the most important thing is human engineering. Because very often you'll find a man may be a man or woman, may be a great leader, but may not have the requisite technical qualifications, for instance. And yet, if he knows how to handle those who have those qualifications, he's a leader, automatically. There are leaders who have not even done much as far as their education is concerned, but they know how to make others work who have education. So this is leadership. Plus, humility. There has to be a certain humility to know that I may not know everything. There may be others who know, so you can outsource. I personally think this is very important, especially in future. If we don't look into these matters, we're going to end up, I'm telling you, into a third world war. And that doesn't affect only some nations, it affects the whole world. 3/4 of the world would be destroyed if somebody presses a switch. How do we go about this? Only the young can help. People should stand up and talk about it. Thank you.
How should we bring up our children in context of making them good citizens and leaders of tomorrow?
I think this question has been discussed before in some way. So probably you gave it without looking at that, because two people writing a question from two different parts, you didn't see what the other person is writing. But at the end of this question, somebody has said Hari Om, so I greet them back as Hari Om.
Can you say something about politics in India and how we can counteract it?
Not my subject matter.
Who am I?
I know that this is a very serious question, but it cannot be answered in one sentence. However, I want to tell you something that really happened. My father had a friend who was a building contractor. My father was also into construction. He thought I would join him, but it's a terrible business, so I did. So he was also a builder, the friend of his. So suddenly he had a big loss and everything was gone. So somebody told him, I'm talking about the time when Ramana Maharshi was still alive, somebody told him that there is a great saint there. If you go there and take blessings from him and tell him about your losses, then you might be able to recoup. This guy didn't know anything. He'd hardly gone to school, he's nothing in philosophy. He thought, loss, so let me get something out of here. So he went. There was a queue and everybody was passing, and as soon as he came in front of Ramana Maharshi, he related everything to him in Malayalam. I don't know if you know this, but Ramana Maharshi could speak and write in that language, even though he was from Tamil Nadu. So he listened to him very patiently, as he always was. And then he said, now who is having this loss? Whose loss is this actually? Who are you? The man got really wild. He said, what the hell? I've come all the way from Trivandrum to know who I am. I'm Bhaskaran Nair. What the hell are you talking about? I know this, who am I is a different question. But what I'm saying is, first, to know who I am in this context, essentially who I am, or what I am. What I am is better actually. One should first know who I am, as Bhaskaran Nair. Why? I should know where I stand. How am I behaving with others? Is my mind calm and quiet and tranquil? Because until the mind is tranquil and quiet, you really cannot discover who you are in the essential sense, in the ultimate sense. So we should start with defining ourselves as we stand today, and then slowly move towards the deeper aspects of who I am. Because otherwise, Maharshi discovered who he was spontaneously. We didn't do anything. One day he discovered, I'm not this body, I'm something else. He did no practice. For us, it's not easy to get that. Maybe for several lives he had done his sadhana and he was born this way. So we have to put in some effort to figure it out. And the first thing to do is to live in this world and free ourselves from our self and our ego as much as possible, so that we can move into the deeper aspects of who I am. I would rather say what I am. There's no point in sitting down, closing your eyes and saying, who am I, who am I, who... No, this is a chant, it's not an inquiry. It's not going to yield a result. Who am I? Okay, I'm saying, who am I, who am I, who am I? And then suddenly somebody slaps me and says, hey, who the hell are you? You see? So it's two different things.
What is your daily practice?
Well, I do a little bit of sitting down every day. Sometimes if I don't want to disturb the person near me, I lie down and do whatever I have to do. But what I do is now, well, I went through a lot of practice, a lot of sadhana, a lot of things. Now I just quietly lie down quietly or sit down quietly and allow my mind to sit down. That's all I need to do now. But please don't mistake me and stop everything else and say, I also become like this. I just have to do now. No, it requires a lot of hard work to touch that. So my daily practice, there are two things here. One is that I do center my mind and allow it to settle down. I do Kriya sometimes, not always. That is not an excuse for people who do Kriya. And since you said what's your daily practice, the other part of the daily practice, as you live in this world and do your daily duties, watch yourself carefully. How am I behaving? That's also daily practice. How do I behave? How am I reacting to people? That's also daily practice. Both are practices. They have to go side by side. Both for the beginner as well as the person who has walked forward a bit. Thank you.
Well,
Last question.
ask not question, but questions. Somebody's written about a dozen questions on this little slip of paper. How do you control emotions? How does meditation help? How do you start? Everyone has different definitions of good and bad, but is there any one central definition? And for a girl who is in her 20s, what should be her priority, spirituality or career?
Can you come tomorrow to this workshop? We'll discuss something practical. But since you've put it down here, the last question is quite a nice question. For a girl in her early 20s, what should be her priority? Spirituality or her career? So, is spirituality something which you want to separate from your career, in your daily life? Is spirituality not doing anything and retiring into a monastery? I say no. I think your spiritual life at the moment, since you're young and you're working, should come as a gradual understanding and unraveling of your mind as you continue to work. Not working is not an excuse for spiritual. In this matter, I want to say something. According to Sankhya philosophy, which of course has been used in Vedanta, in the Gita, in various places, because Kapila, who wrote, incidentally, the word Kapila means blonde. Kapila, one who has golden hair. Maybe he was a blonde. So, Kapila Sankhya divides the human mind attributes into three rough classifications. One is called sattva, the other is called rajas, and the third is called tamas. Tamo. So sattva, rajas and tamo. All human beings have all these three attributes in different ratios, different variations. Everybody has. Now sattva means goodness, quietness, tranquility, all the good things that we know about, helpfulness and so on is sattva. Rajas is activity, action. Everybody has some part of rajas. Everybody, you think you're not acting, but even when you sleep, your body is working. Action is going on. How does digestion take place otherwise? You're not asking the stomach to digest. All you do is eat your food and push it down in your esophagus. Even that you can't do. It's the muscles that do that. You can chew and swallow, that's it. The rest is done. Work is going on, even when you're asleep. So work never stops. Rajas in another manifestation is when you want to work, when you sit for 2 days in the room thinking, I'm going to do solitary meditation after 3 days with this, I have to get out. So, because why? Action is essential, it's part of your nature. Then there is tamoguna. The tamoguna is laziness, not wanting to do anything, dejection, depression, down here, want to sleep all the time. All this is called tamo. Very often what happens, this is why I said it's important to work, especially when you're young, because very often you mistake tamoguna to be sattva. Think if I don't do anything, if I'm lazy, I'm actually in sattva, in samadhi. You're not. In fact, to turn sattva, to turn tamoguna into sattva, you have to put in a little bit of rajas there. Activity is essential. Otherwise, you might mistake laziness for meditation, depression for samadhi, and cannabis for higher experience. It's better you work.
So I think on that note, Sriyan, thank you so much for laying out a feast of wisdom and practical advice for and I think everyone will agree that all the questions were very fully answered. So, Deepa, would you like to say something? Or? Well, thank everyone for coming today and the Nehru Center again.